Let's see. This title doesn't really tell us a whole lot about what's going on, so hopefully the IMDb plot can get us started. A woman wakes up on a distant planet and finds the crew of her space station viciously killed. Her investigation into what happened sets in motion a terrifying chain of events. All right. So I guess that kind of sets us on a path with a little bit more detail. So, I'm not going to say that I can explain everything that partakes in this movie exactly, fabulously, but I will give it a try. Fairly new film here. I guess you can kind of call some of this stuff spoiler or not. I will try to be as spoiler free as possible here and kind of weave my way through this. It is obviously a movie in space and so forth, so I will just kind of say expect aliens or an alien life form at a certain point of the film, and I guess that's about is the extent of spoiling anything for you. But again, in space, hopefully, that's what you get, because you want it to be a good horror movie here. But definitely, I think at the foremost, it is kind of a sci-fi. If you're into, obviously there is horror in this movie, but also sci-fi into space kind of horror, sci-fi, whatever. This might be a watch for you. I guess it did do its rounds of a couple of festivals, and I guess it was recently released. So, it is definitely starts off very strange, but that could be expected as we kind of wake up with this woman here, and she's on another planet in a space station, and things have gone wrong. Everybody on it appears to be dead, and she doesn't really remember what the hell is happening. And, I don't really remember what the hell is happening much in this movie, but that's okay. So, it is, kind of what you might expect in this situation. They do a really good job of it, keeping it dark, flashing lights, kind of, as she's kind of weaving her way around. Just kind of, they do a really good job of kind of setting that all up there, kind of being mysterious, being on another planet, being dark, and being on the space station, and just, the tension of her kind of being alone early on and not really knowing what is going on. Then it kind of settles in, and she kind of starts to remember, and as she's kind of exploring around and seeing the different people that have died and whatever, she's kind of putting the puzzle pieces together, thinking back to what was happening and why they were there, and so forth. Again, they're on another planet. They eventually, as a group, kind of stumbled upon something, and also, they might have found another life form, and there's that kind of thing going on. So, I can explain all the pieces of the puzzle that's going on, because it is kind of crazy and intense there. And maybe I kind of lost track as the way it went. But it is a little bit strange in that way. But eventually, she is going to find out that there is someone else who survived on the events that happened, and between the two of them, they're going to kind of figure out why they were really there and what was really happening and so forth. Until we really dig a little bit deeper into this life form and what is going to happen, I guess, you can say alien-wise in this film. I don't want to say too much. Like I said, I guess there is, a little bit of a twist and turn here in it. I think as you're watching it, I think you'll kind of gather and know where this is kind of going. But I would say that, maybe as, they do a good job of kind of setting it up, and like I said, kind of creating the atmosphere here, and Certainly, seeing the dead bodies and, them around, and then kind of even flashing back to how some of them died. Those are obviously for me the fun parts, the bloody parts of the film. But it is a little bit to get through early on, and let me see, did it say how much? Oh, it's only an hour and a half, so you kind of brace yourself for that and get yourself through that. Obviously, the film kind of amps up once we get into the alien stuff in the back half of the film, and there's a lot of action going on in there, and that is the obvious enjoyable moment of the film. Obviously, who is, I don't really, the main actress I'm not too familiar with, but Aaron Paul, he's the other person who's on the ship that survived. Obviously, he does a good job. We briefly meet, some of the other characters we in these kind of flashbacks. So, to kind of fill in a little bit of what, happened and what happened to them. I guess, it is kind of a thing between, her trying to remember, and then, as, she's kind of mixing between her memory and then, what he's telling, and then what, she sees in the spaceship and what is kind of going on. Everything kind of eventually is going to come together. And, if you're paying attention, obviously maybe I wasn't paying, attention close enough. You maybe kind of see some of those pieces kind of come together. Like I said, I think that the kind of twist and turn that you guys will kind of see, especially seeing a lot of horror or whatever, you'll kind of figure that out. But I thought, like kind of, getting in the moment, getting into the space moment, getting into, like I said, the opening and the intensity there, and definitely the intensity once the action amps up at the end, and all that happens, they did a really good job with. Is this, maybe totally my type of horror? I don't know. Like I said, maybe I should have maybe paid a little bit closer attention to it. I don't know. It just, once it kind of got into the whole kind of, flashback kind of thing, I don't know, maybe I checked out a little bit there. But, I again think that if you're into space horror movies, alien horror movies, sci-fi kind of thing, I think, you might want to give this one a try. Again, I thought they did, the special effects, what they did with the alien were pretty solid. No major complaints in that department either. Like I said, you're going to get a little bit of blood and guts, so let's see a little bit of that. And some of it is kind of the after, maybe a little bit before, as she's kind of seeing the dead bodies that are around, early on in the film. But, again, it's not an alien, it's not, the big alien that and hunting and killing people, all along the line, and big, action scenes. It's not really that. They save a lot of the real big action for the end of the film, once you kind of see the twist, and then we really dig into the alien part of it. The first half of the film is not really too much into the alien part. It's more of her kind of figuring out what the hell she's doing there, why she's there, and why they were on the planet, and why she's the only survivor until she runs into this other guy. So, it is a little bit 50-50 there. I again, maybe a really solid movie, maybe not totally for me. So with that, I think I'm just going to give it 3 pools of blood, and that is out of 5. I'm not sure, I haven't got a follow-up. I know it hit some theaters, and it says that, you can rent it and buy it on Prime, but I maybe it'll get a become free at some point, and then you guys can watch it if you want. I guess not a huge rating here on IMDb, but it doesn't look like a ton of people have seen it either. Like I said, I guess it started at a festival or two, and then is now more widely available. So, again, I think if you're into this type of movie, maybe you'll enjoy it a little bit more than I did. But definitely still a solid film, regardless. Just, I don't know, I kind of lost my way in it a little bit with it early on, and I guess that, kind of made it a little bit of a struggle. But still, did well enough. I gave it 3 pools of blood. I did like it at the end of the day, but, still just, I don't know. So that's 3 pools of blood out of 5. And horrorscorereviews.blogspot.com, so you can find all my reviews written and video. Certainly lots of video reviews for a while now, so you can like, subscribe, and do everything else that everybody wants you to do. If not, it is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Twitter, Facebook information down below as well. Reach out to me there. Feel free to fill me in if you've seen the movie, maybe something I missed, something you liked a little bit more about it, and definitely in the comment section as well. If you have more to say, add, better than I did, that is fine. Please do so. So with that, I will catch you in the next review, horror fans.